No cameras, no scripts, no producers pulling strings. What happened backstage wasn't meant for the public, but now the whole world is talking. In a moment that has rocked the love and hip-hop universe to its core, Mendeecees and Yandy. Once the show's ultimate power couple, exploded in a fiery confrontation that left the entire cast stunned into silence. What started as whispers and side-eyes turned into a screaming match so intense that security had to rush in before it turned physical. Witnesses say years of bottled-up resentment, betrayal, and unspoken secrets all came pouring out that night, and the fallout could change everything. Is this the end of their reality TV reign? Or just the beginning of a scandal that's been brewing for far too long? One thing's for sure, after what went down backstage, nothing in the Love and One hip-hop world will ever be the same. It was supposed to be a night of celebration, a glamorous reunion taping that would bring the love. Hip-hop, Atlanta cast together for one final explosive episode of the season. But behind the velvet curtains and bright studio lights, chaos was quietly brewing. The air backstage was thick with tension. Whispers ricocheted off the walls, and everyone knew something was about to snap. And at the center of it all were Mendeecees Harris and Yandy Smith. The couple once hailed as the power duo of the franchise, now teetering on the edge of total collapse for years. Fans had watched their love story unfold on screen. From passionate highs to painful lows, they seemed unbreakable. The ultimate ride-or-die pair who survived prison time, business struggles, family drama, and public scrutiny. But what viewers didn't see were the cracks forming behind closed doors. Trust issues, jealousy, and resentment had been simmering beneath the surface for months, and on this night, it all boiled over. It started subtly, a few tense glances as they arrived on set. Yandy walked into the dressing room first, poised and polished as always, greeting producers and makeup artists with that signature composed smile. Mendeecees followed moments later, his energy different, colder, sharper, clearly weighed down by something heavy. The two barely acknowledged each other, an obvious red flag to anyone who knew them well. Crew members exchanged worried looks. Something was wrong. The drama truly ignited during a pre-show interview segment. Producers asked a seemingly innocent question about their relationship and how they'd managed to stay strong through so many challenges. Yandy offered a carefully worded answer about mutual respect and growth. But Mendeecees' silence spoke louder than any words. When he finally did speak, his tone was clipped, almost resentful. "Respect goes both ways," he said, eyes fixed straight ahead. "And sometimes people forget that." The room fell silent. Yandy shot him a look, part shock, part anger, and the tension that had been building all season suddenly erupted. Cameras kept rolling, but the energy shifted. It wasn't just another dramatic moment for TV. This was real. After the interview, Yandy stormed out, heels clicking furiously against the floor as she disappeared into a private corridor. Mendeecees followed seconds later, calling her name, but she didn't turn back. Witnesses say they ended up in a secluded corner backstage. It's a place usually reserved for crew breaks. Okay? And that's where everything unraveled. According to insiders who were just feet away, the conversation started as a heated argument but quickly spiraled into an all-out war of words. Years of frustration poured out as both unleashed accusations that had clearly been bottled up for far too long. "You embarrassed me in front of the whole world," Yandy allegedly snapped, her voice trembling with rage. "I built everything we have while you were gone. I held this family together, and this is how you repay me." Mendeecees didn't back down. "You've built it for yourself, not for us," he fired back. "You care more about your brand, your image, your followers, not this family, not me." The shouting grew louder, drawing the attention of nearby cast members and crew. People started gathering quietly in the hallway, listening in stunned silence as the couple's most private wounds were laid bare. Mendeecees accused Yandy of putting the show before their marriage, of turning their relationship into a brand instead of a bond. Yandy shot back that he had no idea what it took to hold everything together while he was away. that he resented her success because it reminded him of what he'd lost. The deeper they went, the uglier it got. Then came the bombshell that stopped everyone in their tracks. Mendeecees accused Yandy of hiding something from him. A major decision about their finances that he claimed she made without telling him. "You went behind my back," he shouted. "And you think I wouldn't find out?" Yandy's eyes widened, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she threw her own accusation right back. "At least I didn't lie about where I was last month." The hallway erupted with gasps. Now, it wasn't just about money or fame. It was about trust. Rumors of infidelity, once whispered quietly among the cast, suddenly felt painfully real. By now, security had been alerted, and producers rushed to the scene, but neither Yandy nor Mendeecees was backing down. "You're not the same man I fell in love with," Yandy said, tears streaming down her face. "And you're not the same woman I fought for." Mendeecees snapped. Their words cut deeper than any physical blow. It wasn't just a fight. It was the collapse of a relationship that once seemed unbreakable. The couple who had stood side by side through everything was now crumbling in front of everyone. And the cameras weren't even rolling when security finally stepped in. Both were shaking with rage and heartbreak. Yandy stormed off to her dressing room, slamming the door behind her. Mendeecees stayed behind, pacing furiously, his hands clenched into fists. "I'm done," he muttered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "I can't do this anymore." The cast, who had watched it all unfold, were left speechless. It was like watching a marriage explode right in front of you. One cast member later said, "We've all had drama on this show, but nothing like that." What no one knew then was that this fight, this raw, unfiltered explosion of anger and betrayal, was only the beginning. The aftermath would shake the Love and Hip Hop franchise to its core, forcing everyone to pick sides and question everything they thought they knew about one of the show's most iconic couples. And as Yandy and Mendeecees retreated to opposite corners of the set, one thing became painfully clear. There was no going back. The love story that once inspired millions was now a battlefield. And the war had just begun. The hours following that backstage explosion were nothing short of chaotic. The reunion taping, which had been hyped for weeks as the most explosive yet, was now teetering on the edge of cancellation. Producers scrambled behind the scenes, trying to salvage what they could. But one thing was clear: nothing could go back to the way it was. The rift between Mendeecees and Yandy wasn't just a momentary fight. It was the breaking point of years of built-up resentment. And the cracks in their once solid foundation were now wide open for the world to see. Inside her dressing room, Yandy sat silently in front of the mirror, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Her phone buzzed, non-stop texts from cast members, missed calls from friends, even a message from her publicist asking if they needed to prepare a statement. But Yandy wasn't ready to talk. For the first time in years, the woman who prided herself on always being composed felt completely shattered. "It's not supposed to be like this," she whispered to herself. "Not like this." Across the hall, Mendeecees was pacing in a small break room, his chest heaving with anger. His phone, too, was lighting up messages from family, calls from producers, but he ignored them all. "She's been lying to me for months," he muttered under his breath. "And now she wants to play the victim." The accusations hurled backstage weren't just heated words. They were daggers cutting deep into wounds that had never truly healed. And now, those wounds were starting to bleed in public. Within hours, word of the fight had leaked. A makeup artist who'd overheard part of the argument sent a voice note to a gossip blogger. Another crew member texted a friend who posted cryptic tweets about Love and Hip Hop's power couple crumbling. By midnight, fan accounts were already piecing together what had happened. And hashtags like #YandyV's Mendeecees and #BackstageBlowUp were trending across Twitter and Instagram. But what fans didn't know was just how deep the betrayal went. According to insiders, the financial decision Mendeecees accused Yandy of making without him wasn't a small one. She had reportedly signed a lucrative deal with a production company to launch her own spin-off series, a project that would focus on her personal brand. businesses, and life as a mother. The deal was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and could potentially lead to even bigger opportunities. But the catch: she hadn't told Mendeecees about it to Yandy. It wasn't betrayal, it was survival. "I had to protect myself," she later confided to a friend. "If this marriage falls apart, I still have to build a future for me and the kids." But to Mendeecees, it was the ultimate act of disloyalty. "We were supposed to do everything together," he told a close confidant. "She's out here making moves behind my back like I'm a stranger. Moves behind my back like I'm a stranger." And then there was the other side of the fight, the part Yandy brought up in the heat of the moment. The trip Mendeecees had lied about wasn't business-related as he had claimed. According to a source close to the couple, he had been seen in Miami with a woman Yandy had long suspected of being more than a friend. The photos never surfaced publicly, but the whispers were enough to cause months of tension between them. Those secrets, both of them, were now fully exposed. And once the cast caught wind of the truth, sides began forming quickly. Some rallied behind Yandy, praising her for being a strong woman who had carried the family, while Mendeecees was incarcerated and accusing him of being jealous of her success. Others defended Mendeecees, calling Yandy manipulative and accusing her of prioritizing fame and money over their marriage. The reunion taping, originally meant to celebrate the show's season, was now at risk of devolving into a public trial of their relationship. Backstage, producers debated whether to cancel the taping altogether. "We can't have them on stage like this," one executive said. "It'll blow up on camera." But another producer saw it differently. "Are you kidding?" they countered. "This is the biggest storyline we've ever had. Fans will eat it up." And so, against the advice of some, the show went on. But the energy was different now, colder, sharper, more unpredictable. Yandy and Mendeecees arrived separately for the taping, refusing to speak to each other before cameras started rolling. Their dressing rooms were placed on opposite ends of the studio. Security was increased, and cast members were warned to stay neutral on camera to prevent another backstage brawl. When they finally stepped onto the set, the silence was deafening. The couple who had once walked hand in hand now sat on opposite couches, their body language tense and distant. The host tried to ease into the conversation, but the underlying tension was impossible to ignore. Then came the question everyone had been waiting for. "Where do you two stand right now?" Yandy was the first to speak, her voice steady but cold. "I'm tired," she said. "I'm tired of carrying everything on my back. I'm tired of being blamed for trying to build a future. And I'm tired of pretending everything is okay when it's not." Mendeecees leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "And I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter," he fired back. "Like my opinion doesn't count. Like you can just make decisions without me and expect me to smile and go along with it." The cast watched in stunned silence as the argument reignited in front of the cameras. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't exaggerated. This was real, raw, painful, and deeply personal. By the end of the taping, nothing was resolved. They left the stage separately, just as they had arrived. But the damage was done. Fans who once rooted for them were now divided. Industry insiders whispered about whether their marriage could survive. And producers, even as they celebrated the ratings gold they'd struck, quietly wondered if the show had just lost its most iconic couple. But the drama wasn't over. If anything, it was only just beginning. Because the fight that started backstage had now spilled into the public eye. And the consequences were about to get even messier. The morning after the explosive reunion taping, the world of love and hip-hop, Atlanta, was in absolute chaos. What had once been a carefully crafted reality empire now felt like a crumbling house of cards. And at the center of that collapse stood Yandy Smith and Mendeecees Harris, no longer the picture-perfect couple that fans had adored for years. The fight wasn't just a scandal anymore. It was a full-blown media storm by sunrise. Major gossip blogs had already broken the story. Headlines screamed, "Yandy and Mendeecees explode backstage, marriage in shambles." Inside, the fight that shocked love and hip-hop. Power couple, no more. Clips from the reunion taping, especially the fiery moments, where they accused each other of betrayal, leaked online within hours. Fans flooded social media with opinions, memes, and speculation. The internet was ablaze, and everyone had an opinion. Some were heartbroken, insisting that every couple has rough patches and that Yandy and Mendeecees could still work things out. Others were ruthless, calling them hypocrites who had built a brand on love and loyalty, only to let greed and ego tear it apart. But the biggest shift wasn't happening online. It was happening behind the scenes. Producers, who had long relied on Yandy and Mendeecees as one of the franchise's most stable and bankable couples, were suddenly panicking. Sponsorship deals were at risk. Planned spin-off projects were now uncertain. And the once lucrative brand they had built together was showing serious cracks. It's like watching a dynasty collapse. One VH1 insider admitted, "They were supposed to be our golden couple. Now, we're not even sure they'll still be together by the next season." The situation grew even more volatile when new allegations surfaced, this time from people close to both sides. According to a source in Yandy's inner circle, Mendeecees had been quietly meeting with a new management team, one that had suggested he rebrand himself as a solo personality, free from Yandy's influence. It was a move that could signal the end of their joint ventures and shared brand deals. Meanwhile, Mendeecees supporters claimed Yandy had been prepping for single life long before the fight. Rumors swirled that she had quietly purchased a separate property in Atlanta under a business name, a possible safe haven if the marriage imploded. The whispers of a breakup were becoming louder by the hour, and fans started connecting dots. Every cryptic Instagram story, every deleted photo, every unfollow fueled the speculation. Had they already split and were just keeping up appearances for the cameras? While the world speculated, the couple remained publicly silent. There were no joint statements, no Instagram lives, not even a denial. But behind the scenes, sources say their communication had broken down completely. They weren't living together. They weren't speaking. Their shared team of publicists and managers was forced to mediate any business-related conversations. For the rest of the Love and Hip Hop cast, the tension was almost unbearable. The drama had split the group into factions, some siding with Yandy, others with Mendeecees. Old friendships were tested, new alliances formed, and scenes that were once scripted for entertainment now felt like real life. Battlegrounds. One cast member described the atmosphere as toxic. "Can feel it in the room," they said. "Every time they walk in, the energy shifts. It's like everyone's holding their breath, waiting for something else to blow up." And something did blow up just 2 weeks after the reunion. An anonymous source leaked private emails allegedly showing that Yandy had been in talks with another network, possibly to star in a competing reality show without Mendeecees. The emails weren't verified, but the damage was immediate. Fans accused her of abandoning the show that made her famous. Others praised her for being smart and preparing for life beyond a broken marriage. Mendeecees responded indirectly with a cryptic Instagram post, a photo of him walking alone down a dark street with a caption, "Loyalty ain't for everyone." Within minutes, it went viral. The post reignited public debate. Was he the victim of betrayal? Or was he trying to rewrite the narrative before Yandy could speak her truth? Meanwhile, Yandy fired back with a pointed message of her own, a quote card reading, "Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's survival." At this point, it was clear. The fight was no longer just about a backstage blow-up. It had become a public, all-out war. One fought not only with words and accusations, but with calculated moves, veiled threats and social media subtweets. And while fans ate up every messy update, those closest to the couple knew something far darker was at play. It wasn't just a marriage unraveling. It was a business empire on the verge of collapse. Their joint endorsement deals were being quietly canceled. Their production company halted new projects. Even their once profitable social media pages saw a steep drop in engagement as fans grew weary of the drama. And perhaps the most heartbreaking blow of all, brands that had once lined up to work with them as a couple were now refusing to touch either of them. Individually, They've become too unpredictable. One brand rep confessed, "Nobody wants to invest in a PR nightmare." By now, producers were desperate to control the narrative. Meetings were held to discuss possible redemption arcs, maybe a couples therapy special or a reconciliation storyline. But those plans hit a wall when Mendeecees reportedly refused to film certain scenes with Yandy, calling them fake and manipulative. "He's done pretending," a close friend said. "If it's not real, he's not doing it." For fans who had followed their journey from the very beginning, from their tearful prison visits to their lavish LHATL renewals, it was painful to watch. It felt like watching a fairy tale turn into a tragedy in slow motion. And yet, as much as everyone hoped for a reconciliation, the reality was impossible to ignore. Some betrayals cut too deep to ever fully heal. And this one, with its mix of lies, power plays, and public humiliation, might be one of them still. There was one final chapter left to unfold, one that would determine whether Yandy and Mendeecees' story ended in ashes or rebirth. Because just when it seemed like the final curtain had fallen, a single phone call changed everything. A single phone call changed everything. The weeks following Yandy and Mendeecees' backstage blowout had felt like a never-ending storm, a cyclone of betrayal, bitterness, and broken trust. Yet as intense as it had been, nothing could have prepared them or the love and hip-hop world for the final act that was about to unfold. It all started with a phone call neither of them expected. The network's executive producer, the same woman who had turned them from reality TV hopefuls into household names, was on the line. And she had a bombshell. "We need you both back. Together. One final interview. Cameras rolling. No scripts. No editing." At first, both refused. Yandy slammed the phone down. Mendeecees hung up mid-sentence. The wounds were still too raw, but the offer was too big to ignore. A six-figure payout, a primetime special, and, perhaps most importantly, one last chance to tell their sides of the story before the world wrote the ending for them. And so, reluctantly, they agreed. The reunion was set for a Friday evening in Atlanta, but this time, there was no glitzy stage, no cheering crowd. Instead, the producers staged it as an intimate sit-down, raw and unfiltered. Just two chairs, one table, and cameras rolling from every angle. It was a setting designed not for spectacle, but for truth. The moment Yandy walked in, the tension was suffocating. Dressed in a sharp black suit and barely their makeup, she looked more like a CEO preparing for a courtroom battle than a reality star. Mendeecees arrived minutes later, his usual calm replaced by a cold, distant stare. There were no hugs, no smiles, not even a handshake. Just silence. The first question from the host was simple. What happened backstage that night? What followed was 45 minutes of the most unfiltered television the franchise had ever aired. Yandy spoke first, her voice trembling but firm. She accused Mendeecees of emotional manipulation, of undermining her contributions to their empire, and of betraying the trust they'd built over more than a decade together. She talked about the sacrifices she'd made, the countless times she'd held their family together while he was away, and how devastating it was to feel like none of it mattered. "I gave everything to this relationship," she said, tears welling up. "And the night we fought, it wasn't just about what was said. It was about everything that had never been said. All the resentment, all the disrespect, all the times I felt like I wasn't enough." Mendeecees didn't flinch. He listened quietly before responding, and when he did, his words cut just as deep. He claimed Yandy had changed, that fame and power had consumed her, that the woman he once knew had been replaced by someone more concerned with followers and brand deals than with family. "You stopped seeing me," he said, his voice low but steady. "All you saw was the business, the money, the cameras. Somewhere along the line, we stopped being partners. I stopped being your husband and became part of your brand." The conversation spiraled quickly. Accusations flew back and forth. Secrets spilled that had never made it to camera. Each revelation seemed to pull them further apart, yet neither one walked out. They stayed. They faced it. And in that raw, painful honesty, something unexpected happened. There was a shift. For the first time in months, Yandy and Mendeecees weren't yelling. They weren't performing. They were talking. The pain was still there, but so was something else. A glimmer of the love and respect that had once made them unstoppable. It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. There was no tearful hug or dramatic apology, but there was understanding. And for many watching at home, that was more powerful than any scripted reunion could ever be. By the time the interview aired, social media was in meltdown mode. Hashtags like #TeamYandy and #TeamMendeecees were trending within minutes. Fans debated every word, dissected every glance, and flooded timelines with opinions. But one thing was clear: the world was captivated. The ratings were through the roof, the highest the franchise had seen in over 5 years. Even critics admitted the episode was a masterpiece of unscripted television, a reminder of why people fell in love with the show in the first place. But for Yandy and Mendeecees, the numbers didn't matter. What mattered was what came after. In the weeks that followed, they didn't rush back into a relationship. There were no declarations of "we're back together." Instead, they focused on rebuilding not just their marriage, but themselves. They agreed to couples therapy. They decided to co-parent as a team. And most importantly, they vowed to communicate even when it was uncomfortable. Meanwhile, the industry, which had once turned its back on them, started calling again. New deals were offered. Documentary projects were pitched. And although they turned most of them down, one offer stood out: a new reality series not about their fights or scandals, but about rebuilding trust and navigating life after betrayal. Whether they'd accept remained uncertain. But one thing was clear: Yandy and Mendeecees were writing their own story now, not for ratings, not for fans, but for themselves. And perhaps that was the real lesson in all of this. Behind the bright lights and dramatic headlines, behind the rumors and betrayals, there were two flawed, complicated people trying to find their way back from a place most relationships never return from. As the cameras faded to black on the final scene of the special, the host asked one last question: "Do you still love each other?" Yandy paused, looking at Mendeecees with a mix of pain, pride, and something that looked a lot like hope. "Yes," she said quietly, "but love isn't the problem. It's everything else we have to fix." Mendeecees nodded. "And we're going to try. That's all we can do." It wasn't a happy ending, but it wasn't a tragic one either. It was real, messy, uncertain, and unfinished, just like life. And for fans who had followed their journey from day one, that was enough. Because in the world of love and hip-hop, there are no fairy tales. Only stories of heartbreak, redemption, and the relentless pursuit of love, no matter how many times it breaks you first. The dust may have settled on that explosive backstage fight. But make no mistake, this story is far from over. What happened between Mendeecees and Yandy wasn't just another reality TV argument. It was years of buried resentment, broken trust, and raw emotion boiling over in front of the world's eyes. And now, as they stand at a crossroads, torn between rebuilding their empire or walking away. From it all, one thing is certain: the next chapter could change everything. But this is where you come in. What do you think? Was Yandy justified in finally standing up for herself after years of sacrifice? Or did Mendeecees have every right to call out a relationship that had become more business than love? Should they fight to fix what's broken? Or is it time to finally let go? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and join the conversation. Your voice matters in shaping the narrative around one of the most iconic couples in love and hip-hop history. Don't forget to like this video if you believe in second chances. And hit that subscribe button with notifications on so you don't miss a single update as this story continues to unfold. Because trust us, there's more coming. New revelations, new betrayals, new beginnings. And when they hit, you'll want to be the first to know. Share this video with your friends, your group chat, and every love and hip-hop fan you know. The drama is real, the stakes are high. And the truth is just starting to surface. This isn't the end of Yandy and Mendeecees' story. It's the beginning of the most unpredictable chapter yet, and you're invited to witness every twist.